On the 7th of May, 1910, a shipyard in Philadelphia launched a ship 542 feet long, built to carry coal. The Navy built 4 of these ships. 3 of them vanished. Not one piece of wreckage from any of the 3 has ever been found. Her name was Cyclops. For 7 years, she did the least glamorous work there is. She carried fuel to other ships. She went to the Baltic in 1911 to supply the fleet's 2nd Division. She worked the American East Coast from Newport down into the Caribbean. When Mexico came apart in 1914, she coaled the ships on patrol there, and she carried refugees out of Tampico to New Orleans. The State Department wrote to thank her for it. She was not a warship. She had no glory attached to her whatsoever. She was a floating fuel tank with a crew, and every single thing a fleet does depends on one. A collier is the ship nobody writes about. She is slow, she is filthy, and most of the work aboard her is shoveling. She spends her whole life coming alongside better-looking ships in bad weather to hand over the one thing without which none of them can move at all. In April of 1917, the United States entered the war, and on the 1st of May, the Navy commissioned her properly. Her master became her commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander George Worley, who had been in charge of her since the day she first went into service, 6.5 years earlier. He had held that ship since 1910 under a completely different title, Master, Navy Auxiliary Service, and the war turned the title into a commission. That June, she crossed to St. Nazaire with a convoy. In January of 1918, she was handed to the Naval Overseas Transportation Service and sent south to Brazilian waters to fuel British ships in the South Atlantic. Remember what she was built for: coal. She did the job, and she did it well enough that the State Department thanked her a 2nd time. So did the Admiral commanding. And then, for the voyage home, they did not fill her with coal. They filled her with 10,800 tons of manganese ore, bound for Baltimore, bound for munitions. She left Rio de Janeiro on the 16th of February, 1918. She was not scheduled to stop anywhere. She stopped anyway. On the 3rd and the 4th of March, she put in at Barbados in the British West Indies. On the 4th of March, 1918, Cyclops left Barbados for Baltimore. She was never heard from again. No distress call, no wreckage, no oil on the water, no boats, no bodies, no debris of any kind. And she was not a small ship. She displaced more than 19,000 tons, and she went missing on one of the busiest shipping tracks in the Atlantic. Nothing was ever found. For 6 weeks, publicly, the Navy said nothing. On the 15th of April, the papers ran it. Big naval collier Cyclops with 293 aboard, overdue since March 13th. Department FVARS vessel is lost. 293 is the number the American press printed in 1918. The number the Navy carries today is 306. More than a century on, the record still cannot agree with itself about how many people were standing on her deck when she left. On the 1st of June, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy signed the order declaring her lost. His name was Franklin Roosevelt. One of them was a seaman called Gordon Dewey's. There is a card for him in the National Archives, a typed record with his photograph pinned to the corner of it, and 4 words at the bottom: lost on USS Cyclops. There are 305 more like him. It is still the largest loss of life in the history of the United States Navy that did not happen in combat. 306 is a number. It is also a drawer full of cards like that one. 1 card for every man aboard. And that drawer is very nearly the only thing left of any of them. So what happened to her? The theories arrived within days, and most of them were noise. German raiders, capture, sabotage. None of it led anywhere. In 1918, there were exactly 4 German submarines operating anywhere near the American coast, and not one of them ever claimed her. And every single one of those theories needed something to turn up: a survivor, a lifeboat, a claim, a scrap of painted plate. Not one of them ever produced one. It is worth saying this part plainly, too, because the internet will tell you otherwise. Cyclops has never been found. There is no wreck. There is no photograph of one. So go back to the thing you were asked to remember. She was designed to carry coal. She was carrying ore. Those are not the same cargo, and the difference is not small. Coal is bulky and light for its weight. A hold built for coal is built for volume. Manganese ore is dense. The same tonnage takes up a fraction of the space, and all of it sits low, down in the bottom of holds shaped for something far lighter. A hull loaded like that does not behave the way it was drawn to behave. It rolls harder and it snaps back faster, and every rivet in it feels the difference. There is a weather chart from that spring with a storm drawn across her track, and a note written on it in a careful hand. Supposed last location of Cyclops. That is as close as anybody has ever got. And then there is the part that is genuinely hard to argue with. She had 3 sisters built to the same design. The first of them, Jupiter, was rebuilt into something else completely. She became Langley, the first aircraft carrier the United States Navy ever had. She did not vanish. The other 2 did. By 1941, Proteus and Nereus had both been sold out of the Navy into Canadian merchant service. Proteus sailed in November of 1941 and was never heard from again. Nereus sailed in December and was never heard from again. Neither loss was ever claimed by a German submarine, and both of them were carrying ore. Nereus was carrying it for aluminum for aircraft. 3 ships off one set of drawings, 23 years apart. The same kind of cargo in the same kind of hull, and in every case nothing at all came back. Nothing has ever been recovered from any of the 3. No wreck, no wreckage, nobody. The Navy's own official history of the ship gives the whole thing a single sentence, and it has not been changed since the day it was written. Her loss without a trace is one of the sea's unsolved mysteries. 306 people went out of Barbados on the 4th of March, 1918, on a ship the length of 2 city blocks. And the Atlantic closed over the entire thing, without leaving a single mark on the surface to say where.